All right, good morning, gang. Let's get started. So great message for you here this morning. Glad you're here. I would suggest that as we have this conversation, take notes, but it'll be important because of the topic this morning that you go back and watch this or listen to it over and over again, because we're going to talk about really what I believe is the number one skill that any real estate agent has, and it's their ability to communicate. So if you're starting to take notes, the first thing I want you to write down is my job. Write down my job in first person, write down my job. And I want to give you 5 things in particular that I want you to keep in mind as we have this conversation today, because I think that the number one reason that real estate agents on average don't make a lot of money, and I said on average, I didn't say I'm talking about average agents, is because they don't do their job. And like any real job, if you don't do it, you're not going to get paid. You will eventually get fired. Well, in real estate, because you're your own boss, only you can fire you. But what agents end up doing oftentimes is they don't do their job on a daily basis, and every day effectively they fire themselves and they don't get paid. So number one, recognizing what your job is. Number one, it is to, and I'm going to say this, even though it's not a 4-letter word, technically it is a 4-letter word. It's called prospecting. It's talking to people. So I want you to write that down. Number one, prospecting. Number two, it's following up with people. The skill of following up with people. That's important. That's your job. And then number 3 is setting appointments and pre-qualifying. And then number 4 is presenting to people, having a conversation with people, whether we're talking about the listing conversation or having a buyer-broker conversation. And then the 5th thing is overseeing the transaction. Those 5 things are your job. Now, if you look at it, every one of those things have something in common. There's a common thread. And ultimately, it's talking to people. It's dealing with people. One of the things that I've discovered many years ago, and it was completely the opposite of what I expected. I thought I was getting into the business of real estate to really deal with houses, you know, the purchase and the sale of houses. And although technically that's what we do as real estate sales professionals, really what we do is we work with other people. Yeah, our job is to get other people to change their perspective, to change their behavior, to feel confident in us, to help them to get to the next level, to basically to lead. That's what we are. We're leaders. And the number one skill of leaders is their ability to communicate. So now, within the context of that statement that your job is to do those 5 things, and ultimately you're a leader and your number one skill is communication, what I wanted to talk about this morning was specifically the basics of prospecting, because I think that the primary reason, in fact, I would imagine it is the number one reason that most people avoid prospecting is because they aren't very good at it and they don't like the response that they either anticipate that they're going to get, or the response that they have gotten or that they do get. And so therefore we don't find ourselves doing it very often. And all of that's normal, guys and gals. I get it. We don't want to do things that make us feel very uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. It makes you very normal in that way. Well, I want you to be abnormal and be willing to do this stuff. But I know that you're going to be much more willing to do it if you've got an idea as to what you would have to do fundamentally to be better at prospecting. So I'm going to go through some prospecting fundamentals. So just write this down. The next heading would be prospecting fundamentals. And I want you to just take notes on this. And for a lot of this, again, you're not going to have the ability to take all the notes. You're going to have to go back and just simply watch it and listen to it over and over again. But the first thing that I want you to write down under this topic heading of prospecting basics is be present. Be present. In other words, be where you are. I think that especially in today's world, guys and gals, there are so many things that distract us and compete for our attention. You know, you look at just simply that thing that you hold in your hand every day, that little computer, that little electronic device, your smartphone, your iPhone, your Android. It's much more than a phone today. I mean, when I got into the business 30 years ago, that thing didn't even exist. I mean, the phone was something that had a cord and it was attached to a wall. And now you take it with you, and it's not just a phone, it's your mail, it's your alternate communication device or portal, you know, for texting. It's your newspaper now. You know, you have the world's news at the tip of your fingers. It's also it's your distractions. You know, all of the games that we put on the smartphone, and then the social media. It's a way for us to socialize. So there's so many distractions. So be present. Be where you are. Number one, make certain that you are setting aside the phone if you're using a landline, and if you're not, then make a conscious effort to say, look, if I'm going to prospect, I'm going to make certain that I'm not texting, that I'm not responding to calls that I get. I'm not checking social media. I'm not checking my email. Because the fact is, all of those things are distraction. Most people are, I'll give this analogy to you. Most people are an incandescent light bulb. They're a normal light bulb. If you were to take a normal light bulb and shine it on a piece of rice paper, it couldn't even burn through the rice paper. Rice paper is very, very thin and can be ignited very quickly, very easily with enough heat. But if you were to take a laser, a fairly concentrated laser, and shine it on that rice paper, it would burn a hole through it. In fact, if you were to take an industrial grade laser and point it at steel, it could literally cut through the steel. In fact, they use lasers to cut through steel. Well, guys and gals, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be not an incandescent light bulb, but I want you to be that laser focused. And there's no way to be focused when we have all these distractions. So number one of the basics to prospecting successfully is to make certain that you are present and that you are where you are. See, most people, when they're at work, they're at home, they're thinking of other things. And then when they're at home, they're at work. And their mind, they travel back and forth. So I'm at work, but I'm traveling to home in my mind. And then when I'm home, I'm traveling back to work. And we do that constantly. And we're basically traveling constantly in our mind from one place to the other, never being present at any given moment. And no wonder we're exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally, because we're always traveling. We're never focused and in the moment. One of the most important things that we can do to effectively communicate with other human beings is simply be there in the moment. One of the biggest challenges that we have in today's world is not being present. So put away those distractions. That is the number one fundamental thing that we can do with prospecting. The second thing is this, and I guess it's really part of number one, it's making certain that we're setting a specific time for when we're going to prospect. So just identify a specific time when we're going to prospect and for how long we're going to do it. Again, that's about setting your intentions and being focused. Number two, it's to be energy. So I want you to write that down. Be energy. Be energetic. Look, nature abhors a vacuum. It doesn't like a lack of energy. If you were to take an empty milk jug and you were to crush it and then screw the cap back onto it and set it down, that jug would remain collapsed like that forever. If you were to unscrew the cap on that milk jug, what would happen to the milk jug? Well, over time, reluctantly, the jug would start to expand. It may not expand to its full form because the plastic is rigid, but what we do know is that it would start to expand. It would start to try to get back to its normal shape. The reason for that is nature abhors a vacuum. It wants to put that energy, that air, that oxygen back into that dead space. Well, the people that you call are no different. See, if you're calling people and you're not energetic, they find that repelling. It's really important that we are energetic. We know this, we respond this way. It's the reason we're attracted to people who are charismatic. People who are charismatic, they exhibit energy. We're attracted to that. We're attracted to people who are energetic. So remember that when you're calling, number one, you got to smile. Even though they can't see you, if you're on the phone, they can feel that energy. And then the second thing is making certain that you're standing up. Don't sit down when you prospect. I see a lot of agents who will prospect at their desk sitting down. It makes zero sense. It makes zero sense to do that. You would never, if you were to meet somebody for the first time and you were at an office, or you were at a restaurant, or you were in the lobby somewhere, and in all those instances you were sitting down, if this person approached you and started talking to you, and they put out their hand to shake your hand and to say hello, and they gave you your name, I promise you, guarantee you, you would not stay seated. And what is so interesting is that we think that we can start a conversation on the phone because they don't see us, that we don't have to stand up. I'm just telling you that the telephone filters out so many of the various factors that people can perceive in terms of our energy, that we have to make certain that we give ourselves at least a fighting chance that they feel our energy. One of the most important things that we can do is stand to expand the diaphragm, because that affects the way in which we project our voice. So look, when you start prospecting, make certain that you are present, eliminating the distractions, starting at a specific time. And then number two, make certain that you're energetic by smiling and standing up. Exceptionally critical, guys and gals. The third thing is this, is to be scripted. I want you to write that down. Be scripted. Now, for a lot of agents, and there are probably some of you who are listening saying, well, I don't like scripts. They're very disingenuous. They're not authentic. I want to be me. And I get that. I understand that. I want you to be you. And I want to be me. And we want to feel normal. We want to feel authentic. I get that. But here's the thing. If it feels disingenuous to use a script, make it genuine. Just practice it. I'll give you a great example of that. Many years ago, when I was a relatively new agent, I had a sales manager. I had decided to work with a brokerage that represented a company in new home sales and new construction. And I had a sales manager who I now admire, but in the beginning I didn't, because I watched this guy. He dressed to the nines. Everything was perfect. There wasn't a hair out of place. He had a gold ring on his pinky finger. His suits were impeccable. He always had this faint scent of cologne. It just, to me, it was too perfect. And for a kid from Orangeville, Utah, grew up in trailers, this guy came across as a snake oil salesman. I thought, well, this just doesn't, I'm not going to do this. I am not going to be like that guy. But what was interesting is that over the first several months that I was with the company and I watched him as he worked to get the deposit, because every time we would sign a contract with someone, we would have to get a pre-construction deposit. And I remember him saying to me, he said, John, one of the things that you'll have to do is you'll have to get a deposit from people. And I said, well, that's no problem. I'm used to getting an earnest money deposit. He said, well, we need to get a pre-construction deposit. And I said, okay, well, that's fine. And he said, normally we'll get 10. And I said, 10,000. Well, that's more than what I normally get. I mean, I'm normally getting somewhere between $1,000 and $5,000. And keep in mind, this was decades ago. And I said, but I could get 10,000. And he said, no, not 10,000, 10%. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, we've got to get 10% or tens of thousands of dollars literally from people before we ever turn any dirt. And I kind of, he could tell I was a little bit shocked when I discovered what he meant. And I said, so 10%? And he said, yeah, we get 10% and people will pay it. And I thought, yeah, sure, they'll pay it. But I watched him day after day, week after week, month after month, engaging people. They would come to the door, and one of the things that he would say is, good morning, folks, or good afternoon, folks, come on in. And he would do it with a lot of energy. But the thing that would irritate me is that he would use that word, folks, and he would put that in that statement with that, all that energy. He would say, good morning, folks, come on in. And to me, it seemed very disingenuous. In fact, it made me cringe. I felt embarrassed for him when he would say that. I really did, legitimately. I felt embarrassed for this guy because I just knew that these people who were walking up to the model were listening to this guy and saying, this guy's a snake oil salesman. We don't want to have anything to do with him, but we want to see this home, so we're going to come in. I just knew that. Well, what I watched is that day after day, week after week, month after month, as this guy presented this way, is that he would get people to sit down with him and sign a contract and pay a 10% pre-construction deposit. And it blew my mind. Because see, I knew that it was very disingenuous, that I knew that when people heard that word, folks, that it turned them off. Well, as you might imagine, the reason I'm telling you this story is that wasn't true. What I realized was that I wasn't familiar with the script, and because I wasn't familiar with it, it made me uncomfortable. You see, I wasn't used to saying those words in that way. And so what I committed to do, because in the very beginning, I was trying to do it my way, creating my own script, my own approach, and it wasn't working. I thought, well, you know what? If he's doing this consistently, right, and getting great results, then maybe I should just simply mimic what he does. And so I did. So I remember that first day, I saw some people coming up and I was so nervous and I thought, man, they're going to see right through me. And I looked at them, I said, good morning, folks, come on in. And the crazy thing is, day after day, week after week, month after month, in fact, for years, because I did that for over 10 years. In fact, I got so good at it that I took his job, that I took his sales manager position because I became the #1 agent for that brokerage selling that product. And I took the sales manager's job because I simply recognized that having a script did not have to be disingenuous, but I would have to practice it. And if I practiced it and made it my own, then the most important person who needs to be comfortable with it was comfortable with it. And then it permitted other people to be comfortable with the message when they heard it. So guys and gals, be scripted. I don't care if you're calling FSBOs, expired, your sphere of influence, just listed, just sold, renters, non-owner occupied, NOD, REO, it doesn't matter. Have a script. We have to have a routine. See, we all have routines. We have a routine that we follow every day in so many different ways. Routines create efficiency. Routines create predictability of outcome, duplication of outcome. That's what a script will do for you. The only reason that we shouldn't use a script is because it's not effective. Well, I guarantee you that we as a company have so many scripts and they're all effective. You can make any of those scripts yours, but you're going to have to practice it and become genuine through the process of just simply practicing it over and over and over again. Okay, so the fourth thing that I want you to write down is this: sales skills. Write down sales skills. All right, so there are several things that we're going to cover here. So we're going to go through this quickly because we don't have a lot of time. We got about 15, 20 minutes. We're going to go through this. And this is where it's really important for you to go back and listen to this message, because I am not going to explain a lot of this in detail because we simply don't have time, but I will certainly give you the concepts. So I'm going to do this within the context of a call, and we're going to call an expired listing. So the very first thing that we want to do, I want you to write this down: sales skills, right? And then under that, I want you to write down #1, because this is really going to be a formula or a process that you're going to follow. So #1 is that we've got to give our intro and ask a question. That's what we're going to do. We're going to intro ourselves and we're going to ask a question. So when we call somebody on the phone, ring, ring, they pick up and we say, good morning. This is John Ciet with Century 21 Everest. I'm a real estate broker in the area. That's my intro. Okay, we should always have an intro. Okay, now remember, as I do this, I'm paying attention to my energy. I'm going to make certain I'm energetic. I'm making certain that I'm standing up. I'm making certain that I smile. I'm making certain that I follow the script, because I'm going to say that same thing over and over again with every expired I call. Good morning. My name's John Ciet with Century 21 Everest. I'm a real estate broker in the area. Okay. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a question. Now, because it's an expired, it's going to be a question specific to an expired. If it were your SOI, you'd ask the question specific to the script for an SOI or a FSBO. Okay. So obviously, this is going to change from script to script depending upon the target source. So the question I'm going to ask is, I've noticed that your home is no longer on the market and it's now an expired listing. And I was calling to find out when you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home. Now, I asked that question. It's really important. Great leaders ask great questions. That is a well-designed question to get an intended outcome. Well, what outcome am I looking for? I'm just simply, look, what I did there and what a lot of agents want to avoid doing is getting very direct and to the point. Their home's expired. I want to find out when they plan on interviewing the right agent. Notice I'm pointing to myself for the job of getting their home sold. So in other words, I'm basically confronting them in a great way of what they're going to do next. List with me, interview me, because I'm going to get your home sold. At that point, then, what I have to do is as critical as asking the question, because it makes zero sense if we don't do this. And what I find is that most people don't do this. Even if they ask questions, they don't do this. Step #2, which is to actually listen. Guys and gals, it does zero good. Zero. Zilch. Nada. It does zero good. Bupkis. If you ask a question and you don't genuinely listen to what they say. See, you know this. You've been in conversations with people where you do it, they do it, I've done it, where we ask a question and then they start to answer, and instead of listening to what they have to say, we start thinking about the next question we're going to ask. Or they'll do it to us, and you can tell that that's what they're doing. Because there's never any genuine, detailed, depth conversation. It's very superficial, and it's one-sided. It's a very one-sided conversation. Conversations tend to be very one-sided if you don't ask the question and then listen to what they have to say and then ask more questions that dig deeper into what it is that they actually said. So make certain that when you ask the question that you do what is most important after that, which is to listen to what they said. Remember, the number one human need is validation or acknowledgement or acceptance. Well, the best way to do that in a conversation is to let people know that you actually listened to what they said. And there are various ways that we can let people know that we listen to what they said. If we're face to face, we can nod our head, we can smile. You know, if we're sitting at the listing table, you know, we're having a listing conversation, we can nod our head, smile. We can also take notes. But the most important thing that we can do, whether it's face to face or over the phone, is to repeat back what they say. So take the time to listen to what they say and to repeat back some of what they say. So I say to that expired, so when do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of getting your home sold? And their response is, you know, we're just going to try to get it sold on our own for now. We're very frustrated with our agent, and quite frankly, with all agents, because we were supposed to have our home sold by now. So all I'm going to do is repeat back some of the most important words that they said. I don't want to repeat back everything, but I'm certainly going to repeat back some of their key words. I don't want to sound like a parrot, right? And repeat back verbatim what they said. Polly want a cracker? Polly want a cracker? You start doing that to people, they're going to recognize that. And it sounds very disingenuous. You want to be disingenuous, repeat verbatim what people say. But it is important that we identify some of the key words that they use. So some of the words that I heard that expired say was that they were frustrated, not just with their agent, but with all agents, and that their home was already supposed to be sold. And so they're just going to try to get it sold on their own. So I'm just going to repeat back basically what they said. So what I hear you saying is that you're very frustrated, not only with your current agent or your past agent, but basically all agents. Your home should have already been sold, and so you want to try to get it sold on your own. You know what, Mr. Seller, if I were you, I would feel exactly the same way too. Now, I could say I feel exactly the same way too, or I would think the same way too, or I would do the same thing as well. So either feel, think, or do. I want you to write that down. Feel, think, or do. So when I repeat to them, acknowledging what they say, one of the things that I want to do is to let them know I'm okay with their decision to not agree to meet with me or to not want to work with an agent. One of the things that will do is disarm them, because oftentimes, and what they've been trained to do if other agents have called them, is to take that defensive position. It's like, I'm getting ready for you to tell me that I'm doing the wrong thing so that I can tell you off, tell you why I'm right, or just simply hang up on you. But see, if you repeat what they say, actually let them know that you listened, and then you affirm their right to think that way, or feel that way, or to do that thing, you know, wait, try to get it sold on their own, or just give it some time, then they'll take a step back. What that'll allow you to do is actually buy more time on the call. Actually buys you a little bit of rapport. And that's exceptionally critical on these calls, because they don't know you. The extent to which they know you is that you're a real estate agent and a salesperson, and that ranks you pretty close to an attorney, which is ranked pretty much at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the conversations that people don't want to have. So it's really critical, guys and gals, that when you ask the question that is scripted, that you listen to what they say genuinely and repeat and affirm what it is that they said. So I'm going to do that one more time. So what I hear you saying is that you're frustrated not only with the agent you just listed with, but with all agents. You feel like your home should have been sold. And so you're just simply at this point going to wait and give it some time and then decide whether you're going to list in the future. You know what? If I were you, I would feel exactly the same way too. Now, the next thing that I need to do to make certain that I'm doing is that as I'm doing that, I'm mirroring and matching their energy. One of the things that I don't want to do is if when I call somebody, they pick up and they have a very excited voice, very energetic voice, is for me to respond by saying, if they said, "Good morning, this is Tim," and I answered in reply by saying, "Good morning, this is John with Century 21 Everest. I'm a real estate broker in the area." That's a mistake. See, energy is attracted to like energy. People like to be around people who are like them. There's no way to resonate, right, unless we are matching people on their energy level. So make certain that if people respond energetically, that you're responding energetically. That if somebody is responding in a subdued fashion, that at least initially you respond in a subdued fashion. Have you ever had anybody who responds with a great deal of energy when you're not having any of it? When you got a headache or your energy is low, right? Or it's just, it's early in the day and you're just not up to that point energetically. How does it feel? It feels very uncomfortable. It's very off-putting. Now, I'm not saying that you should lead the call that way the entire time. I'm just simply saying, pay attention to the way in which people will greet you and the way you're talking, and at least in the beginning, mirror and match the way that they are speaking. Because when in Rome, do as the Romans do. It's a way of connecting with people. People like to be with people who are like them. You can eventually lead people to a higher level of energy, or you can match whatever the level of energy is and resonate with them. But if there is a discordance there in the beginning, make sure you pay attention to that, and then you match their style of communication and energy. So step number 4, or the thing that I want you to pay attention to in your prospecting, is using a transitional statement. So I asked that initial question. I listened to what they had to say by repeating and affirming what they said. I responded in a way that mirrored and matched their energy level, not only with the tone of my voice, the rate of my speech, but also the words that I used, using some of their words. And then I'm going to use a transitional statement. Now, what is a transitional statement? I want to just give you an analogy. A transitional statement is a lot like the coupler, or the thing that connects the boxcars on a freight train. We've all seen a train on the tracks going down the tracks, and you see the cars that are connected. They're connected by what's called a coupler. Those couplers keep the train connected and keep it one, unit rolling down the tracks. But each box is separate. It's its own distinct entity, carrying its own, containers of goods. One container may have computers in it. The next container may have toilet paper in it, right? They're all products, but they're different products. Well, a transitional statement is basically the ability to transition from one boxcar to the next, from one topic to the next in the conversation, all right? So it's basically that coupler. It's the transition between those two boxcars. So a transitional statement allows us to go from one topic on hand to another one, completely different topic. So the topic on hand in the conversation up to this point with the expired seller was, when do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? That was the topic. And they said, well, I don't want to do that right now. We're just going to give it some time before we do that. And we'll decide if we're going to sell it ourselves or if we're going to list with an agent again. That's the topic. Well, I could continue to talk about that, but I don't want to. Because at this point, I don't have enough rapport, haven't built enough value to try to get them to agree to meet with me. So what I have to do is I've got to transition from that topic to a different topic. So I'm going to use a transitional statement. I'm simply going to say, well, when they say we're going to just simply give it some time and maybe sell it on our own, or we might list with another agent, but we're going to give it a few weeks. And I'm going to repeat and affirm that. So you're going to give it some time and maybe list it on your own, or you may put it back on the market with an agent in a few weeks. And if I were you, you know what, I would do the same thing too. Having said that is the transitional statement. So I respond by saying, having said that. I could also say, as important as that is, that's a transitional statement. Or, now that I know that, Now that I know that, that's a transitional statement. So I can say any of those things. Having said that, now that I know that, or as important as that is, and then I'm going to move on to my next question, which becomes what is step number 5, which is a pattern interruption. So what I want to do is interrupt the pattern. The pattern was meet with me for an appointment so I can show you how I'm different and we can actually get your home sold this time. But they told me that they didn't want to do that. And because I don't have enough rapport, haven't built enough value, I need to continue the conversation. And if I press that topic, they're likely to hang up on me. I don't want them to do that. I want them to stay on the line. So I'm going to change the topic. So I'm going to use the transitional statement and ask a pattern interruption question. So, well, now that I know that, Mr. Seller, then I'm going to ask the question, if you had sold your home, where were you planning on moving to next? Or where were you planning on going? Or I could ask the question that relates specifically to the topic of their home being on the market, but not of what they're going to do next, but just simply asking the question, if your home had, or what was causing you to decide to sell your home? What was happening next? See, for some people, it's a job transfer. Some people, they're downsizing. Some people, they're upsizing. Some people, it's, you know, they've got a job promotion and financially they can afford to buy a new home. It's a lifestyle change. There are all sorts of reasons. So share with me, what caused you to decide to put your home on the market? I'm asking that question or any other questions that are off the topic of meeting me for an appointment so that they get the opportunity to tell their story. Remember, the number one human need is validation or acknowledgement or acceptance. And if we ask a question of somebody that's off the topic of meet with me, and let me be your agent, and we listen to them share their story and we repeat and affirm what they say, our chances of building rapport go up exponentially. And if our rapport goes up with them, they're more likely to entertain a conversation with us much longer. And if we have more rapport and then circle back around to the conversation about meeting for us with an appointment to talk about how we could actually get their home sold this time, they're more likely to entertain that conversation. So a pattern interruption is basically a question that changes the topic or the direction of the conversation. Getting off the topic of meet with me for an appointment, moved on now to what caused you to decide to sell your home, or had your home sold, where were you planning on moving to next? Hopefully that makes sense. Go back and listen to the script and to the pattern there and piece this together, and I promise you it will. So the next step is this. It's called a level shift. So one of the things that I want to do is listen to what it is that they actually said, which means sometimes a level shift is reading between the lines. See, for example, they say this. They say, you know what, we're not going to list with our agent again, and we may not list with an agent at all. We're just going to wait and see how we feel in about a month. Well, guys and gals, I read into that. What I hear is frustration. A level shift is reading between the lines. What you hear there is frustration. So as a result, we need to acknowledge that frustration. So if they said to me, you know what, we're not going to list with our last agent, and we're certainly not going to list with any agent for a few weeks. We may not even list with another agent again. I'm just simply going to repeat and affirm what they say. So at this point, what I hear you saying is that you're not going to list with your agent or any other agent at this point. Just going to give it some time. You know what? If I were you, I'd do the same thing too. That repeats and affirms, it acknowledges, right? And then I'm just simply going to respond by saying, you know what? I can hear the frustration in your voice. And you have a right to be frustrated. Just simply acknowledging that, guys and gals. Hearing that word frustration be acknowledged in the conversation, even though they didn't say it, you could feel it by the words that they use, by their energy. You start to resonate with them. Again, this is all about building rapport. All of this is about connecting with people, because we have literally a few seconds to a few minutes to connect with people on these calls. And if we're not building the rapport and connecting with people, they're going to hang up on us. If they're a driver or sometimes an analytical or an expressive, they'll give us all sorts of reasons as to why they're not going to entertain meeting with us. Or if they're an amiable, they'll just simply continue to say, thank you for calling, thank you for calling, thank you for calling, and never allowing us to get to the point of actually setting an appointment. So it's critical that we're building rapport. These steps are all about staying in the conversation, keeping them engaged, acknowledging them, validating them, and moving the conversation forward. So we've level shifted, meaning we've read between the lines, heard what they actually said, and acknowledged that, even though they didn't say I'm frustrated, I converted what they said to really what they are saying or feeling, which is frustration. And then I'm going to say, you know what, if I were you, I'd feel the same way too. And having said that, transitional statement, you know, what is interesting is while your home was on the market, I actually sold X number of homes, or my company sold X number of homes. Now that's called a soundbite, and that's the next step. So in these calls, it's really important that we are using information that can validate our message or cast a vision of what's possible for them. That's what great leaders do. They cast a vision. See, the vision is, look, while your home was on the market and it didn't get sold, I actually sold homes, and my company actually sold a lot of homes. And all I know is that you only have one home to sell. And if we can sell a lot of homes, literally thousands of homes, while yours didn't sell, then I know that we can sell yours. That's really what the soundbite communicates. It's basically a commercial that validates that there is value in talking with me. It actually gives them some hope. It casts a vision of this is what's possible. So again, I'm going to go back to, you know what, Mr. Seller, I can hear the frustration in your voice. And if I were you, I'd feel the same way too. Having said that, what is interesting is that while your home was on the market for 6 months, I sold 6 homes. I sold 12 homes, or my company sold 2,300 homes. And since you only have one home to sell, I'd certainly like an opportunity to show you how we could actually get your home sold at this time. And that's the very reason we need to get together. So what would work best for you, an afternoon or an evening? The way I finish that is with a close. So that's the next step. So I did the level shift. I acknowledged whatever emotion was going on there, in that case, the frustration. I repeated and affirmed that transitional statement from that, saying, now that I know that, or having said that, if I were you, I'd feel the same way too. Soundbite. It's interesting, while your home was on the market, I sold 12 homes, my company sold 2,300. That's the very reason we need to get together. So I can show you how you can actually get your home sold this time. So what would work best for you, an afternoon or an evening? Guys and gals, that is a pattern and a process. It's basically a formula. Now, for some of you, it may seem really easy. For some, it may seem complicated. For some of you, you're saying, my head is swimming. It's important that you go back and you listen to this over and over again. I'm going to repeat the various points that we've talked about here, just so you kind of got a list, and then you can go and pull this information out. But I want you to recognize, number one, we talked about being present, being focused, being there, eliminating the distractions, being energy, being energetic. So smiling and standing up when you prospect, setting a specific time for when you're going to do it. Be scripted, follow a script. Practice that script so that effective words can become your words. It just simply means you've got to practice it. And then we use a list of sales skills in the conversations. Number one, simply starting with an introduction and asking a great question. Again, a question that is a rote question. The same question every time that we ask that specific source, SOI, expired, physical, whatever it is. We give the intro and we ask a question, and then we listen. That's the next step. We've got to listen to what they say. And the best way to listen over the phone is to repeat and affirm what they say. Repeat some of their key words and affirm it. If I were you, I'd feel the same way, think the same way, or do the same thing. If we are face to face, we can nod our head, we can smile, we can take notes. We've got to listen to what they say. The next step is to make certain that we are mirroring and matching. Mirror and match their energy. Do what they do. So if we're in person, we can use their body language, nod our head when they nod our head, smile when they smile, right? Our posture should mimic their posture. If it's over the phone, then we need to use similar words, similar energy, similar rates of speech. That's important in mirroring and matching to build rapport. Then the next step, or the next skill, is transitional statements. The transitional statement is basically a way to transition from one topic to the next. It's that coupler. It allows us to go from one freight train car to the next. We've got to change the subject, because if they're saying no to meeting, then we got to get off that topic to another topic so we have more time on the phone to build rapport with them. So we're going to just simply change topics. And we do that by asking a question. A question becomes a great way to interrupt the pattern or the direction of a conversation. So we just simply ask a question that's off topic. In this case, we ask the question of, if your home were to have been sold, where were you planning on moving to next? Or the other question could be, what caused you to decide to sell your home? I keep forgetting that question. What caused you to decide to sell your home? And then there's the level shift. The level shift is reading between the lines. It's not what they actually said, not the exact words, but it's basically their message, the energy that they're giving off. It's frustration. If it's anger, if it's excitement, whatever it is, then use those words. I can hear your anger. I can hear your frustration. I can hear your excitement. That's a level shift. It's reading between the lines. And then there's a soundbite. Soundbite is basically a 30-second commercial that gives them some sort of fact or information that justifies working with you, presents value to them. You know, while your home was on the market, I listed and sold 6 homes. My company listed and sold 2,300 homes. So if we can do that in 6 months, we could sell your home. And that's the very reason we need to get together, which is then the transition to the close. That's the very reason we need to get together, so that we can help you get your home sold this time. So guys and gals, remember, your job is to communicate. And I want you to get better results in that process, or to get you to communicate more often, to actually get to prospecting consistently. If you'll use this pattern, these formulas, these skills, and commit to doing them, I promise you, just like me decades ago when I watched him do that, how uncomfortable it was, and I just started to mimic his patterns in his process. It was interesting to what happened over the course of the several months, and then of course over the years as I took his job. Guys and gals, I want you to have that sort of experience where you, when you get on the phone, you enjoy doing it, because you know that you're going to ultimately, you're going to change people's perspectives, you're going to change their behavior, you're going to change their lives, you're going to offer tons of value. And in this economy, in this world, in this capitalist system that we live in, when you serve people to a high level, you get paid to a high level. And that is cool. So let's finish it up with some closing affirmations, and go out there and have a great day and practice these sales skills, and go back and watch this over and over again. Here we go.